I think I can sum the situation up here for viewers. This is Mr. Pipeline, and this is Mr. Pipeline 2, and Mr. Trudeau, I'm not so sure. But I'm Jagmeet Singh. I will never force a pipeline on Quebec. That is clear.
Mr. Scheer?
The current plan put forward by Mr. Trudeau was to give huge exemptions for large polluters. Large companies that have a special agreement with government, taxpayers and Canadian workers have to pay 100% of their carbon tax. There are no taxes in my plan.
Hold on. You would place a massive exemption for the biggest emitters.
You will not tax anything. You won't win anything. With my plan, Canadians will no longer pay.
See what happens. We'll see what happens, Mr.
We will invest.
For Indigenous people, Mr. Scheer, we'll start with we'll start with you.
Here we go again, and I wore my orange turban again. But anyways, that's a very serious question. What I've seen is Mr. Trudeau. He talks a good game publicly, but the decisions he makes privately are the problem. When it comes to Indigenous communities, if there was a willingness to do something right away, it could be done. It's as simple as that. If the decision was to fund Indigenous kids the same way as other Canadian kids, that could be done. It shouldn't have to go to court. I would respect Indigenous communities. It's a matter of dignity. If you start with that recognition, it could solve so many problems. Equal funding is the starting point.
Mr. Scheer,
Go ahead, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you.
Many Canadians wrote to us with their concern about the fact that about 50 migrants cross at Roxham Road at the Canadian border every day. Is that a problem for you?
Yes, it's a problem. Because we are now in a world where there are 70 or 75 million displaced persons. We recognize that we have a responsibility to make sure that these people go through our entire immigration system, and that's what we're doing. We've made the necessary investments, and there's no free pass to get through the border. Whether people arrive in a regular or an irregular way at the border, they have to go through a security check, and they have to go through every step of our immigration system.
Mr. Trudeau, Ms. May. Climate change is an issue for the entire planet, not just for Canada. Yet in the next 10 years, China intends to open 6 new coal plants every month. How can we ensure that Canadians will not be obliterated by the actions of other countries?
It is not possible for me to guarantee anything, but I'm absolutely certain that if Canada keeps doing what it's doing now as a rich, industrialized country with an increase in greenhouse gases, it's impossible for us to play a role worldwide in UN negotiations.
The problem, the key to this problem is that Conservative and Liberal governments have chosen to neglect Indigenous communities. They had the opportunity to do something if they wanted to. When they have a chance to do something for the oil patch, they jump on the chance to buy a pipeline
2 seconds.
at a huge cost.
If you're going to do something, do it alongside First Nations. Do not impose it top-down. They have the right to be part of decision-making.
That's the end of that three-way debate. We're going to move on to the theme of Indigenous peoples. Mr. Trudeau, this is very recent. Last Thursday, you appealed a judgment that ordered the government to pay $40,000 to Indigenous children that were given to child protection. Were you not supposed to be the champion of reconciliation?
And we are, and we continue to champion reconciliation. We agree with the court that we absolutely have to compensate those children, and we're going to do that. We're going to work with them to establish the right level of compensation. But we have made concrete investments over the last 4 years. We were able to get rid of 87 long-term boil boil water advisories. After 10 years where Mr. Harper did nothing, we've created new schools. We have made new investments in partnership with Indigenous peoples. But we understand that we need to continue to move forward. There's still a lot to do, but Chief Perry Bellegarde of the Assembly of First Nations has recognized that no government has done more for Indigenous peoples than we have.
Yes. Well, Mr. Trudeau, that's not true, because the Human Rights Tribunal has a ruling, and the lawyers for your government contested the results. It's not true what you said about being comfortable with the decision. The lawyers of the federal government are trying to overturn the ruling in favor of Indigenous children. It's a scandal.
With the court that we must compensate these children.
Listen, there are still problems.
I'm trying to understand, why do you appeal the decision?
Because the timeline of doing it by December doesn't work with the elections that we're in right now.
Yes, but
we are going to compensate those children, but it's going to take a bit of time to do it the right way.
I've always been clear. I do not want to intervene. What I do want to do is always fight against division. I'm against discrimination. I know a lot of people face discrimination in their lives. It's wholly unacceptable. But I want people to get to know me in Quebec and all across the country. I speak to people, I say, yes, I wear a turban, but I'm in favor of the right to abortion. I'm in favor of fighting climate change. Sure, I wear a turban, but we share the same values. It's all about values. If you want to protect society, you need to reinforce women's rights, their right to choose. That's how you create a fairer society, and that's what I'm willing to do.
I've always been very clear as well. We will not intervene at this stage because this is a question, an issue where Quebecers are challenging this unfair law, or this law that they find unfair, before the courts. It would be irresponsible for a federal government to close the door to ever intervening at a future stage when freedoms and fundamental rights are at issue. We need to be there to protect francophones outside of Quebec. We need to be there to fight for the rights of women, for the rights of the LGBTQ community, and for the rights of religious minorities. I will always defend the rights of everyone, and we'll see when we come to the next stages.
Trudeau has just told us that he would get involved, and Mr. Singh said the very opposite to what he said in English just a few days ago. Not true. I may finish, Mr. Singh. I will stick by my word. This is a Quebec area of jurisdiction. Secularism in Quebec, it's the way things are now. It's a Quebec area of jurisdiction. We have to honour that. And we can't step in and ride roughshod over Quebec's areas of jurisdiction. We're not going to intervene like Mr. Trudeau has indicated he will, and we're not going to hem and haw. Not true.
Mr. Singh, you said at a press conference after your last debate that you would intervene at the Supreme Court stage. Can you give us more details?
I simply repeated a fact, what Mr. Trudeau said, and I repeated it. What I said clearly was that I do not want to intervene. I don't want to. What I do want to do is to win over the hearts of people. That's what I've always said. That's what I want to do, because I know that the politics of division is not good for society. It's harmful.
I'm very clear that there is a possibility that the federal government might need to intervene, but it's not guaranteed, Mr. Bernier, because we are going to let the court case follow its course. But I think Canadians expect that a federal government be there to defend, for example, francophone communities. If, for example, a conservative majority government under Doug Ford wanted to attack francophones in Ontario, they expect a federal government to be there to defend them.
I don't know what the people of Quebec would do if that were to be the case. But for Quebecers, the notion of secularism, it's a progressive value that comes from the Quiet Revolution. It's welcoming, it protects, it's fair. It's fair for men and women. It's not something that is restrictive. in the heart and mind of Quebecers. I appreciate that some say that it's up to Quebec to decide. Now, Mr. Singh, you're not saying the same thing in English and in French. And when we're talking about secularism, Mr. Trudeau speaks about New Brunswick and the right to abortion. Quebecers need to know that they will elect people who are in favor of secularism. The people who would lose before the Supreme Court, would they feel that this is an institutional lack of respect? Well, some might ask themselves that question. I'm convinced that is not the Legault government's intention, that it's not a sovereignist government.
I am the only person who has been clear on the matter. We will not intervene. It's not that we didn't only say we don't want to, we said we won't. That was my position at the very beginning, it's my position today, and it will be my position after the election. What is clear is that Mr. Blanchet's priority is to try and stir up sovereignism once again. He will work with the Parti Québécois the second the elections are over to try and lead to a new referendum. That's his priority, and that's clear.
Open debate now. I'm going to ask you a question, and then it's up to you to respond. It's in a crisis situation that you can measure the judgment and transparency of a leader. You've almost all forgiven some candidates or let them go, embarrassing candidates. So from now on, can you tell us that there'll be zero tolerance for any candidate or MP who would make any racist comments? Mr. Blanchet.
First, I understand why this question is asked tonight. If any of the candidates had refused to apologize explicitly, they would not be a candidate of the Bloc tonight, because I can state I'm sure that the fact that I wrote in newspapers, that I was on TV before, I know that everybody looked into that with a fine-tooth comb. And I understand that it's the same for my colleagues on stage tonight. What is essential to me in an election campaign is that people can choose for whom they'll vote based on the values they put forth. And we will work for Quebec.
4 examples of people what we had to forgive, you and Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Scheer as well.
I can say is that there is one candidate who did not meet our policy. That is a candidate who breached ethic guidelines twice, who lied about many things in their life. And that is the Liberal Papineau candidate.
Mr. Trudeau.
Apologies are important, but intentions and values and concrete measures that are taken are important as well. And we will always judge on values and actions taken by everyone. It's a part of the election choice before people. Our people representing their values will be there to defend them, and people know that for 4 years I have been defending them, and we will continue to move forward defending those values together.
We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. All the candidates have made mistakes, but what's important is that they take ownership of their mistakes, that they own them, and thereafter we just need to ensure that they share Canadian values, that of tolerance, acceptance, freedom. Our party has been founded on personal responsibility, freedom. All our candidates are expected to live by those principles. That's a question of authenticity. If a person apologizes but doesn't commit to change in the future, there's no strong commitment to do things differently. So in that case, it would be a no. But if a person says they're sorry and commits to change, if they share our values, they can stay in our party. Our value is to work for people, not for the wealthy. Our value is to defend human rights. We want to advance social justice and fight the climate crisis. We can do this together, and that's exactly the type of candidates and team we have and we need.
I think that we have a problem in our democracy. I have a number of people who've asked me why would someone run for a party in an election in our democracy? Because there are always things that are embarrassing, but to me, it's an issue of the level of their comments. We have zero tolerance for racism, anti-Semitism, sexism. We have zero tolerance. That's clear. But we have to think about this because in the last few weeks in this election, we have spent an awful lot of time on small politics and not to try to find a way to work together to fight the climate emergency. And to my last breath, I will try to stop the climate emergency.
We need to work together. We need to make the right choice. We need to move forward to fight against climate change, and we will continue to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer, Mr. Blanchet, and then we'll conclude.
The choice for this election is clear. 4 more years of tax hikes, of more expensive lives, or a Conservative government that will make life more affordable for everyone.
We'll be in the House of Commons. We will vote in favor of what's good for Quebec against what is not good for Quebec.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.